Welcome to our webinar. Today it is Ask the Experts about lilies, and this is National Garden Bureau's Year of the Lily, and we are super excited to have these experts on our panel today. We're very happy that it's the Year of the Lily. Lilies are amazingly beautiful and elegant flowers, and we're going to hear all about them today. I am Diane Blazek. I'm the Executive Director of National Garden Bureau. I have with me Gail Paps. She's going to be posting a lot of helpful links, not only about our panelists, but about lilies in general and specific varieties. And who's going to talk about those varieties? It is our four expert panelists. So I am going to briefly name our panelists, and then I'm going to pop back and let each one of them introduce themselves and tell you a little bit about their company or the companies they are representing. So we have Andrew from, it's pronounced Onings, correctly? Correct?
Correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. And we have Crystal from Eden Brothers. We have Peggy Ann from the Garden Media Group, representing flowerbulbs.eu. And we have Joey representing Think Plants. So alphabetically, let's go back to you, Andrew, and you can tell us about yourself and your company.
Okay. So, welcome everybody. Thank you for inviting me, Diane, to this webinar. My name is Andrew Bly. You'll probably hear my accent. I'm from the UK, but I've been moving back and forth, living a bit in Holland, back and forth to the UK for about the last 30 years, representing Dutch companies. I work currently for a company called Onings Flower Bulbs, who are a specialist in lily bulb export. So we buy varieties bulbs in from growers, and we export them to over 50 countries across the globe. I became affected, I use that word, by lilies from the age of about 7 years old, when my father first started growing lilies commercially. So that was my introduction, and here I am all these many years later.
That's so cool. So as a 7-year-old, what was it that attracted you to lilies?
Well, I think because it was very new. My father had actually sort of traveled with his business, corporate life really as well. He was the technical director for Dow Chemical Europe, and he came home to farm. There was a small nursery, some glass, and my grandfather had been forcing traditional flower bulbs, tulips, daffodils, and of course my father wanted to sort of bring something new, young blood into the company. Lilies, as a commercial cut flower crop, really got off the ground here in the Netherlands after 1975. That was the sort of catalyst moment when they discovered here, or was through research, they discovered that you could freeze and hold lilies. So instead of them being a seasonal item, they became an item that we could grow in rounds consecutively. So that really enthused a whole kind of breeding program. Production, more intensified flower bulb production followed that. And my father was very forward thinking in his early days, and he got into lilies sort of quite early. I think was one of the first 4 or 5 commercial cut flower growers in the UK that started with that. So 1976.
Yeah. Good. Okay, let's continue alphabetically. Crystal, tell us about yourself and your company.
Hey there, my name is Crystal Provenzano, and I work for Eden Brothers. We're located in beautiful Asheville, North Carolina. We have a website, edenbrothers.com, and we sell more than 1,000 different varieties of seeds, vegetable, flower, herb, wildflower seeds. You can buy them in as small as a packet, and some of our varieties come in as large as 5 pounds for wildflowers. We also sell flower bulbs, including lilies. So seasonally, we sell all different types of flower bulbs in the spring for spring planting, and then some in fall for fall planting. And we sell lilies for spring planting and fall planting. So we have a large variety of different kinds on there.
Awesome, awesome. And Gail just posted a link to your company.
Great.
Continuing on Joey, I'm doing alphabetically, so by first name. So Joey, you're next.
Thank you, Diane. My name is Joey Wiseman. I am the director of Think Plants, which is a marketing platform that was established about 7 years ago to help breeders and producers come to market in North America with their plants. And that includes mostly perennials, but that includes a lot of bulbs, and lily bulbs are one of them. So I've worked with Andrew, who's on the panel, to help bring some lilies into the US. My whole life's been in horticulture, and I've had some pretty substantial lily plantings in several of my gardens. I just love lilies, so I'm happy to be a part of this group.
Yeah, I don't think any of us would be here if we didn't love lilies.
True.
Okay, and Peggy Ann, it's your turn.
Hi, I'm Peggy Ann Montgomery. I'm from flowerbulbs.eu, and we don't sell flower bulbs. We're there to inspire and educate. And much like Andrew, I was affected by lilies at a very, very early age. My mother was a gardener, and I think I was just overcome by their beauty and fragrance. I lived in the Netherlands for 15 years and studied horticulture there. So I got to learn from the best. And thank you all for coming in. I am thrilled to be here to share my love of lilies with you today.
I think we should have entitled this webinar Lily Love instead of the experts about lily. Hashtag Lily Love. We'll remember that when we post it out. Okay, so as I mentioned, this is the year of the lily, so we've got a lot of information on our website. But one of the things that is always very interesting to us when we're doing some of these year of features is the many different types of whatever the crop is. So I know that there are a lot, but maybe several of you would want to just kind of pop out with a few of your favorites, or some general classifications, because there are all types of lilies. Who would want to go first on that?
There are a lot. I feel like we can do like a Forrest Gump style of, Asiatic lilies, Oriental lilies, let other people jump in.
Yeah, and we'll talk about the hybrids. We all have hybrid vigor, so I'm going to talk about the LA hybrids and the OTs and some of these gorgeous doubles that are coming up. The breeding work in lilies right now is amazing. So you have nothing but great things to look forward to.
I'm a big exponent of pot lilies, and that is partly because one of the first times I came to the Netherlands as a young child, really, I saw lilies in pots, and that was completely foreign to anything that I'd seen at my father's cut flower nursery. Hadn't even thought or known or seen anything of lilies in pots at that time. We're going back a long time, but I've spent much of my working career trying to build a market for pot lilies. The interesting thing about that is that the genetics for pot lilies, or shorter forms, more stunted forms of lilies, was always there. But the fascinating part is that the hybridizers, in the race to breed better and more interesting and improved cut flower varieties, that they threw the shorter strains away. So we almost had to kind of recycle and get back. And now, of course, we have very many, and it's a great commercial marketplace. But yeah, I love the versatility and the joy of pot lilies.
Good. So we're going to go into our presentation, and we've just put them in groups by each one of the panelists. And so we're going to start that. But I did want to tell all of our viewers that if you have questions, please put them in the chat or in the Q&A. I already see a couple questions. Those are the types we're going to answer after. So we're going to right now get you inspired by all these beautiful photographs, and then we will go into the questions to help you grow a better lily. And Crystal, I believe that yours is the first set of lilies, so we'll let you take it from here with a nice basic white Easter lily.
Yeah, so I think the Easter lily can be thought of as maybe the classic lily that people think of first. It is a lot of people grow them inside for them to bloom during Easter, which is where I think they get their name from. But they can also be planted outside and are hardy in areas, usually about zones 3 through 9. They should be good in that area. And they're usually a classic white.
Okay, thanks.
Am I talking about this one too?
Yes, yes.
Okay, I'm sorry.
The first set of slides are all you, Crystal.
Oh, okay. My gosh. I missed the memo on that.
Right.
The Japonicum lily, I don't have an awful lot of information about that on hand. I'm sorry.
Oh,
I don't know if can someone else jump in and talk about this variety?
If not, we've got plenty more to talk about. So
okay, Maragon Lily, here we go.
Okay.
The Martagon is a lily that is generally about a mid to late summer bloomer, and as you can see in the picture, it has multiple blooms on it. I know that this one has several blooms, and some of them have smaller flowers on them that can have up to even 100 blooms on one plant. So those tend to face downward, like we're seeing right here, and sometimes outward. And they come in a variety of different colors.
And do you know the hardiness on this one?
This one, all of the lilies are generally, are the lily bulbs that we sell that I'm familiar with generally fall into that hardiness range of zone about 4 to 9 or 3 to 9. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you. Madonna?
And the Madonna is a hybrid lily. I believe it's a trumpet mixed with something. And that is another popular lily that comes in the pure white of that, hence the name. So it is also hardy in those similar zones. I think the bloom time for this, I think, is about mid to late summer as well. And this lily is one of our newer lilies. I don't have an awful lot of information about this one. We just got this in not too long ago. So this is a newer one that we started introducing in the last season or two. But it does tend to bloom toward about mid to late summer as well, with the multiple blooms. It's got, as you can see in the picture, it's got more of a trumpet shape, and the flowers face outward. And tiger lily, I think a lot of people are familiar with tiger lilies. These bloom about midsummer here in North Carolina. We see them about end of June, beginning of July. They can grow fairly tall depending on where they're growing, and we see a lot of them grow naturally here, like along the sides of the road or when we're walking in the forest. But they generally have these downward facing flowers, as you can see in the photo, and they come in this tiger lily is one of the more popular ones, but I know that species lilies can come in a variety of different colors.
And I love the angle of the photography here to really emphasize that downward facing, but the beautiful blue sky behind it. Very nice.
Yeah. And the wild yellow lily is going to be related to this species lily. This is also a newer variety that we've had, that we've gotten in stock more recently. So it would be blooming probably about midsummer as well, with the downward facing smaller flower.
Excellent. Thank you, Crystal. And looks like Peggy, you are up next. And I believe you have yours categorized by type.
I do. I'm going to talk about some basic ones that we all know and love. And I just want to make sure that you're growing these. I'm going to talk about Asiatics and Orientals and some of their hybrids. I can't believe it, but there are some people in the world that think the fragrance of lilies is too strong. And if that's the case, then you want Asiatic lilies. These are gorgeous. It's funny, you always hear us talking about which way it's facing, up or down. Many of the lilies face downward, like we saw with the Martigans and others. And a lot of breeding work has tried to help us get the flowers up so we can look at them from the top. So you will see these bloom in late spring or early summer. They have a very light or no scent, about 2 to 5 feet tall, and are kind of the quintessential lily when you think about it. And the next slide is just going to be another beautiful color. These come in great color Blakes with the freckles and without. If you can bear to do it, they make the most outstanding cut flowers. I think it's one of the reasons I love lilies so much is because we always have flowers in the house, and lilies really last a couple of weeks, which is kind of amazing. The next one I'm going to talk about are the Orientals, and everybody knows these. We always talk about Stargazer and Casablanca, and I would bet that a bunch of you in the audience have grown these before. And they are beautiful, and they are extraordinarily fragrant. For me, who loves the fragrance, even just a small bouquet of 3 stems makes my whole house smell amazing. Even at an outside table for summer dinners, the fragrance is still there and gorgeous. These are big flowers. They have lots of pollen. They're great looking. They're like the divas of the garden. They're gorgeous. And this is another kind of a newer one. This is an LA hybrid. And the LA hybrids are hybrids between the Asiatic lilies and the longiflorum, which are the Easter lilies. So these LA hybrids have that great hybrid vigor that we're always talking about. This one called Eyeliner is a creamy white with a little yellow in it and just the faintest line of brown around the edge. They are gorgeous in the garden. They are gorgeous in a vase. They bloom mid to late summer with a light fragrance because of that Asiatic blood, tall, hardy stems, long lasting, and they actually last longer than Asiatics in the vase.
And thank you for explaining the LA hybrid part. I thought maybe this had something to do with Los Angeles. So thank you for explaining.
No, afraid not. This is another gorgeous LA hybrid. These are going to come, and this is kind of a production picture. It's not a gorgeous garden shot, but what it's showing you is the upright habit, the upward facing flowers, and having so many flowers on one stem. This is what they're really known for. Straight up, really sturdy stems. I would advise staking some, get some lily stakes, because of wind, rain, other things can knock them over, but this is really the form that you're looking at with LAs. They're great. This is Scheherazade, and Scheherazade is an OT hybrid, and that is a cross between an Oriental and the trumpet lilies. I happen to grow Scheherazade, and they just are mind-blowing. Mine are like at least 7 feet tall. I live in Zone 7 in Delaware. When I'm from Minnesota, where nothing got 7 feet tall in the summertime. So these just amaze me. They are like all lilies, all single lilies are pollinator magnets, and you should just see these. They sometimes call these tree lilies too, obviously because of the height. And as you can see, look at how many flowers are on that. And that's not unusual. And mine are probably maybe 3 years old, and they have more than that per stem. They are incredible. These are very tall, so you definitely want to stake them, but they are totally worth it. This will be the talk of the town, and our neighbors stop because they're in our front yard and ask about them all the time.
That's a beauty.
It is. This is another OT that I love, and I grow this one as well. And while I like the crazy Scheherazade, she's like out there, there is something very soothing about this very light yellow bloom. It's going to go great with the hydrangeas, as you can see in this vase, and other things that are blooming at that time. So whichever color palette works for your garden, there is a lily to fit that pattern, that color pattern. And best regards, pollen free. I'm not sure whose this one is.
Oh, this is Andrew. Sorry.
Okay, but these are
you're right.
awesome,
Okay.
Andrew.
Okay, I went a little bit too quick.
That's okay.
Thank
what
you
he's got coming
so
up is awesome.
Okay, and now then we are going to go to Andrew, and the first one of his set talks about a pollen-free lily.
Yeah, so we all know, of course, that lilies are pollinated, and that can be a problem. Of course, there are many lilies sold in all countries across the globe on a daily basis. So we don't necessarily see that pollen in lilies is a problem, but of course we've all got our own experiences that it can be, and there is a drive here in the Netherlands in terms of hybridizing to try to produce lilies without pollen. Now that can be double lilies, which essentially instead of having stamens and stigma, produce more petals, so you get a double effect. This variety, best regards, is only one of a few varieties. There's another variety called Vendôme. This variety, best regards, they are both pollen free. So they produce pollen pods, they produce anthers, as you can see at the end of the stamens there, but they don't produce any pollen. So though it appears as such that they do, that they don't. And I'm not technical enough to explain to you what the process is, but also I think that it aids the shelf life or the vase life on those type of varieties, because they almost seem to sort of freeze at that point when they should sort of reproduce and produce pollen, then they dry back. And I've had many people who've walked through our trial house who, stand and look at best regards as a great color, as a very large flower, nice upward facing buds, and look at all the other qualities. And then I say, well, do you see something else about this variety? And they still don't recognize that it's pollen free. And there will be a range of these varieties to be introduced in the future as well. This particular breeder, GAV Lilies, or GA Vertical hybridizing, had quite a few, but other companies, Royal Van Zanten hybridizing, have introduced more into the marketplace. So they will become more of a regular feature.
Excellent. Thank you.
Oh, I love this variety. I said to you, I'm a kind of champion of pot lilies. I like the versatility of pot lilies, and certainly for gardeners as well. The versatilities that pots can give you. Because they're mobile and you can move them around. And what else it is with lilies? They grow so well in containers and pots because you then tend to put them in a media rather than into a soil. And the whole success in many aspects of growing good quality lilies is to produce prominent stem root structure. And in a pot, in a media, that tends to be where it's more controlled, that tends to be an awful lot easier. I selected this variety because, this is the classic American starfighter type color, the red, pink, crimson color with the white edge. And of course it kind of pulls you in because it's so photogenic. That's why it also makes very good pictures, of course. And this is a variety called Star Romance. So this is kind of carried on from the Stargazer line. Lots of hybridizers, will think about their end marketplace ultimately after they've sold to the bulk grower and the bulk grower has sold to the exporter. Where is it going to go? So they're looking at the more prominent markets, and there's been a great shift in terms of hybridizing to OT hybrids, so using Oriental blood to cross with trumpet lilies for their natural vigor, rather as they did moving from Asiatic hybrids to LA hybrids. But still, Orientals have held their place for a whole host of reasons, and it would seem that transitioning this color to OT hybrids is not an easy thing. So still the American market is very captivated by this color.
Hey, Andrew, if somebody wants to produce something we're seeing on the screen, what size container do you recommend, and how many bulbs would you put in for a nice look for a patio or something?
Well, this is, I believe in this white pot, this picture down on the right, at least on my right hand side. I think that is a 5-liter pot. So that would be a 17 centimeter, 8-inch pot. and there would be 5 bulbs in there.
So somewhere like a 2-gallon-ish size.
Yeah. And that would be a 14-16 size. Star Romance is quite floriferous, and we would expect 3 to 5 flowers, possibly more like 4 or 5, even up to 4 6. But yeah, that kind of size would be more than adequate. You might, that's quite congested. You may even only want to put 4 stems in there.
And just use a standard media you can buy at the store.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said earlier, I mean, lilies like to be, they want to be moist, but to create that perfect stem root structure, they want a cool, steady start, and they definitely want to be free drained. They don't like sitting wet. They'll punish you for that. So again, that's why growing in pots and containers tends to be very successful.
And Andrew, so for these that you're talking about to grow in containers, are they also, can you put them outside and overwinter in zones, say 5 through 8, 4 through 8, something like that? Or are they more?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think lilies are generally harder than most people would actually give them credit for. I've seen incredible things over the years. I once went to visit a grower, and so a professional grower, but he'd saved some lilies, a variety that he really loved. It was a new variety, and he planted them up in pots, and he stood them at the end of his greenhouse, and they got flooded. It was outside position, and they got flooded, and then of course typically it froze within days afterwards. It was a block of ice, a complete block of ice. And I remember standing there with him and saying, well, they're going to be done. But he left them. And sure enough, they come round again. So, if you've built up a root structure and you've built up a buffer, lilies are perennial. So, we take them as then not bare bulbs, but we take them as bulbs, and you build them to a plant. And even if you get, sub-zero temperatures, I mean, I always talk, I'm European, right? So I talk in Celsius. So, but, I think lilies can stand temperatures, down to -3, -4 degrees. So long as they don't sit wet, and they do have a buffer of root material, to make sure that they can withstand that.
The one thing I would say, Diane, on these, they will do great in the landscape, but these were bred to be shorter, more compact. So whereas, your standard Oriental lilies are going to be pretty tall, these may want to go kind of in the front of the landscape a little bit more. They're going to be shorter than some of the other older breeding.
It's a really good important point, Joey. That again, that's why I'm a great aficionado of pot lilies, because I just think they're so reliable. The area where I live is quite flat. We get strong winds in the spring and again later in the year, even through the summertime. I love OT hybrids in my garden because they're so powerful. They're such strong, vigorous growers, and massive blooms. But the damn things fall over on me many times, so I'm staking them up a lot of the time. Whereas, genetically dwarfed varieties never do that. They stand firm and, short and stocky, and never fall over. So, that's nobody wants stuff to fall over, keep staking it up all the time. It's a real good quality of pot lilies.
Yes. Okay. Let's see what else you have.
Oh, so I put White Romance in. So when GAV hybridizing. So I used to work for GA Vertical, who had an export business specializing in lilies. And in latter years, they delved into hybridizing. They came up with a range of pot lily varieties. I think there's some joys in my slides, which are pot Asiatics. White Romance is a pot Oriental. Why have I put it into this sort of process of slides? Because I'm also really enthusiastic about fast growing, quick flowering varieties. And what's really curious in the world of pot lilies is that pot Asiatics, if you visited the Ownings trial house in June during Dutch Lily Days, you will see all types of commercial lilies, and the first ones to flower are the pot Asiatics, because if you lined up all hybrids, pot Asiatics are the quickest. So there's varieties even in that range that will flower in 7 weeks. Pot Orientals are at the other end of the scale. So generally you tend to think, well, pot Asiatics, they're quite short, so they've got less to do. That's why they flower quickly. Well, you'd think that the same would apply for pot Orientals, but it's not that way. The most successful varieties, Starlight Express, Entertainer, After 8, these are varieties that people will know. They're quite slow varieties, beautiful varieties, nice genetic dwarfs, very similar to the Star Romance we just looked at, but they flower in 16 weeks plus. Certainly outside that's going to be longer. And this variety, White Romance, flowers in around about 10, 11 weeks. So it flowers 5-6 weeks ahead of anything else. So it's a pity that I can't zoom you all into the Ownings Trial House that I walked yesterday. We have a sea of green, of course, because Dutch Lily Days doesn't start until 3rd of June. I think I'm right in that. And this variety is flowering now. So the unfortunate part of that is it'll be all gone and done when the masses arrive, but great for us to see early. And that bloodline is very few and far between. And it's something that we're trying, with Joey's help, we're trying to put to practical use, because then we can use fresh bulbs planted early. And of course, Easter was incredibly early this year, but I think with a normal Easter date, we can have this variety flowering for Easter. So Easter lilies, beautiful, white, but also another option here.
Yeah, that's what I was going to comment. We may see this White Romance as an Easter lily. The other thing to keep in mind, we talk about how do we have lilies in bloom in our garden for a long period of time? Well, usually you're waiting till, end of season or kind of midsummer for an Oriental to come into bloom. White Romance, well, in your garden, it'd be the first one to color up. And we haven't had that before, a early blooming Oriental Lily in the landscape. So this is pretty significant new breeding.
It's caught the imagination of one of my dry bulb retail customers in the UK, and they're thinking about using these. There's a couple of varieties in this range, and calling them an early bird collection. Early bird lily collection. That's the idea. Whether we'll quite capture the imagination of others, we'll see. But that's the idea. So Perfect Joy is one of the Joy series, the pot Asiatics. What I like about this variety, of course, rather similarly to the Star Romance, it's a two-tone and it's a very eye-catching variety. What we tried to establish within the genetics of the Joy series was bolder. Generally, many pot Asiatics can almost be too short, too frail, smaller, petite varieties. And when I started to try to sell pot lilies, it was hard work in the beginning, because you used to talk to cut flower growers and they knew nothing about pot plant production. And then you would go to pot plant growers and they'd never heard of lilies in pots. So we came from very humble beginnings. But what I tried to introduce was bigger, bolder varieties with more plant body that we could fill a pot, because the directive was, well, we don't want to see dirt. We want to fill a pot and create a plant mass so people very much see and feel that they're getting value for money. This variety certainly fits into that criteria. It makes a tremendous bud flower count from small bulb sizes as well. So that's a wonderful advantage, that you, at not great cost, that you can create a tremendous, panorama of flowers, a 12, 14 size, which would be a normal size that we would export, sell to US growers, will easily produce 3 to 5 flowers. And I'm being very conservative in that estimate. It's normally about 4 to 6. So, already just a pot of 3 is going to give you 15 plus flowers and flower over a long period of time. Yeah, this is Lava Joy, one of my favorites. Again, the professional photo on the left, obviously, gives the nice lifestyle image. but I put the trial house picture beside it, one to show the expansion of the bloom. There's another one that I have with my trusty Pentel pencil, which is about 13 centimeters, about 4.5 inches long, and I laid it over the breadth of the flower, and it doesn't quite make it from petal end to petal end. So a big flower, normally bigger the flower you get, the fewer that you get. The more you get, the smaller that they are. That's the common denomination. But this kind of bucks the trend because we get good flower bud counts, and yet we get a large size flower as well. But what I really love, I love this flaming kind of, that's why I call it lava joy, this sort of fluorescent, bright orange color. And it has a good plant to go with it as well.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. All of these joys, one thing you can count on is good, strong growth. So anything in the joy series, the breeding work was just as much done for the stem and the leaves and the strength of the plant as for the flower. So holding up in the landscape, looking beautiful. The joy series, they were selected all to be able to do that. So
yeah, we tried to tropical joys is another good example of that. What the target aim was okay, fine, you've got very practical, short, compact plants that will fit in most people's gardens, patio, terrace areas. That was my aim, and I'd like to think that we've been successful in us and others in the industry of introducing pot lilies into people's sort of gardening lives. Because if I think about the UK and where I'm from, that we're not a big country, and many of us are condensed into a really small area. That area is called London, and the suburbs of it, which house about 22 million people. 11 million people, which is about 22%, 23% of our population. So many people don't have much area. And this is a typical prime example of displaying that lilies can be so versatile, and not to detract from Scherzerada and the big tall tree lilies, which are wonderful. But these give great versatility as well.
And I think that was the last variety that you had sent. Does that sound right?
No, I think there's a yellow one, isn't there, Charlotte?
There could be a yellow one. Yes, I think there may be. Yeah.
Oh, there it is. Yes, there's the pink one. Yeah.
Oh, there's the pencil. There you go. So you can see. Sorry, that wasn't loaded before. I hadn't remembered that. Through. So
this one's my favorite. I love this lily. Everybody should have this one in the garden.
Yeah. So I think in many ways we're kind of at the end of the breeding trail on pot Asiatics. I mean, us and colleague competitors have a range of color. There's a good range of availability. So it was now kind of trying to say, okay, well, where can we improve further on these genetic dwarfs, these compact varieties? And that was to get bigger, more stunning flowers. And Charlotte's Joy was I think is the kind of the poster variety for that, because it creates wonderful sized blooms, good overlap with the petals as well. Very, very strong variety, and we saw some varieties early, more species types where you see lots of speckling. I think if I ask the general public, it's almost 50-50 split in that, whether you like speckles or you don't. Typically hybridizing has moved away from that to create cleaner, sharper looking, bolder colors. But yeah, of course, taste and beauty is in the eyes of the beholder. So, but that was the purpose of the breeding for that variety. Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Yes, and that was the final one. So, thank you very much. So, what I want to do now is really address some of the questions. So, I'm going to take these beautiful lilies off, and we're going to put up your beautiful faces instead. And I will say that the number one question that we're getting in the chat and the Q&A is all about the lily beetles, the red lily beetle. So it's an unfortunate problem. So let's talk about it. Some regions may not have it yet. Some regions do, but give us your tips on what we can do to combat the red lily beetle.
I'll start.
Go ahead.
It's not in
Radio
Oregon.
silence.
I'm in Oregon. We haven't had it yet, but I just saw that they've found it in Washington State. So it's just a matter of time, which is really disappointing. But so I was looking into what do I do, and it's kind of the standard things that I know about. I mean, if you can picking them off your plant, if you got a few, that works. That's a good start. But you got to be fast. You know, they're beetles. They fall. But there's this neem oil they say to use, and that sort of hurts all the different, you know, the larvae, the eggs, and the adults, all of them. And the one thing I'd say too, I think the adults spend a lot of time under the lily in leaves or debris in the soil. So when I've sprayed things before, I not only do the plant, but I just kind of put a little bit on the ground around the base of the plant also. And they also, one of the hazards of these guys is I think whatever part of them overwinters in the soil. So if you've had them last year, chances are right back where that bulb was, you're going to see them again. So, you know, one thing maybe if you've had an infestation in one part of your garden, go ahead when they're dormant, dig up those bulbs, you know, kind of clean them off, brush them off, and take them somewhere else. And maybe you'll leave those red lily beetles behind for a while. Besides that, I haven't really. Safer soap also potentially works, but I think that works better on the larvae or the soft bodies before they turn into the beetle.
Anybody else have something to add? It sounds like it's definitely a problem. They've got a large collection of lilies. Are there any other
They
sprays?
seem to be in New England, Central and Western Canada, Washington. I know they're coming down into Oregon. I've been fortunate not to have them yet in my garden, but they're very difficult. And picking them off is difficult. And I've had luck with other things like other invasive beetles, holding a cup of soapy water under that leaf before I try to get them so they at least drop into my cup before they drop onto the ground. So doing things like that, using neem oil, I think are the things that I would advise for a homeowner. Anything chemical that would kill them, like Savin or malathion, is nothing you want to use in your home garden or anywhere else. So I think what Joey said is the right method.
I think if I can come in, of course, there's many different pesticides that can deal with the problem. What's really curious is in, you know, very intensified flower bulb production in Holland, there's no discussion about lily beetle at all. It tends to be more garden focused. I you know, I'm not an entomologist at all, but I only, you know, can talk from my own observation, which is generally that it likes warm, humid conditions. Yeah, Joey's right. You got to get it, if you're going to pick them off, you've got to get in there early. I don't know whether it exists in the US. I probably should have done a bit more research before this, but there's a product in the UK called Grazers, which is a biocide. So it's a bio spray. They also claim that, you know, it aids the plant by, you know, giving further greater nutrient. And rather like Joey, when I use that at home, I spray it on the crop, and I spray it on most of my lilies in pots. Surprise, surprise. And I spray it on the substrate that I'm using as well, or on the potting media that I'm using. And again, you've got to keep up with that. And my feeling is, where I've not had any problems, is that you've got to get it on early. If you get it on early, a lily exfoliates, so you have the adult foliage, and then it exfoliates. So if you can keep coating it, then it doesn't kill lily beetle, but it just, you know, masks the foliage so that it makes it less desirable for it. That's my interpretation. I think rather like you know, the professional industry in bulb production is going to have to consider or consider that they will have to go down that route, which is, we're going to have to find more and more disease-resistant varieties. I've been working for the last 4 years with different dry bulb retailers here in the UK. There's a guy called Andrew Salisbury who works for the Royal Horticultural Society down in Surrey, close to London. And in the 90s or early 2000s, you'll find his thesis online. He actually done a PhD in Lily Beetle, so he's the guy who could probably tell you most, or if not more than any other. And what we did notice, I got involved because we sent the bulbs for that trial. And what you could notice then very clearly was, of course, quite naturally, certain varieties are more susceptible than others. And really, just by accident, through my own trials and trials with a companion, we found that one variety, particularly in our trials, which is a variety called King Solomon, is Lily Beetle resistant. I say that very, very cautiously because it's now we're into the 3rd year trial. So over the last 2 years, we haven't seen it. Last year, we planted it with 2 varieties either side of it that we know are very prevalent, very sensitive to Lily Beetle attack. And they attacked 2 of those varieties, and King Solomon stood in the middle. And we saw Lily Beetles on the leaves, but we saw no damage, Wow. And I thought last year that I saw some damage. And I thought, oh, goodness, they've got this one as well. But it actually wasn't. It was slug damage on the lower leaf, just one leaf. So we have actually presented that variety to dry bulb retailers in the UK. And we're very careful to say that it's Lily Beetle tolerant because, a complete claim to resistance would have to predicate, of course, that it's been tested all over the globe in different environments, and it hasn't been, but and I think almost the wetter winters and the milder winters we get, we're going to see more of it. I'm talking about the UK. I don't know so much about the US, but
true in the US as well, as our climate is changing. So that's helpful. Hopefully there are some varieties coming out that are more resistant. Another question that we have is about fertilizing lily bulbs. So when should they be fertilized, and what kind of NPK ratios should we be using when we fertilize our lilies?
I think it depends on the planting area and the planting type, if whether they need fertilizer or not. A lot of lilies don't even need to be fertilized. You're almost doing them a disservice if you give them too much. But if you're looking for like a bloom enhancer, there's those bloom booster fertilizers. You're looking for, like, when you're talking about the NPK, you're looking for like a 5-10-10 or a 10-10-10, something with a decent amount of phosphorus in there that helps the bloom get more robust. But they don't necessarily need to be fertilized, in my experience.
Mine will survive beautifully without. I have a clay-rich soil that holds a lot of nutrients. I do fertilize them, and I use an organic fertilizer. It's very safe. You can't hurt your children and grandchildren and pets or anything like that, and you will not burn your plant using it. So I'll give them a little something like, when they're just coming up, just to maybe give them another little boost. But they're pretty tough. I haven't had a lot of trouble with things, lilies declining in my garden, and there are years I do not get to fertilizing, and they're still okay.
Yeah. And you can use a little bit of bone meal too upon planting. Yeah.
Sure.
Good. So one of the comments, which I don't think we can talk about lilies without addressing this, is being poisonous to our pets. And so we did do the research on the ASPCA. And yes, if your cat eats them, it could cause some issues. So we're not advocating planting lilies if you have cats or if you are concerned about that at all. So that is just one of these things that you comment on to say, yes, we are aware of that. So if you have cats or are thinking your neighbor's cat's going to visit, just be aware of that. Another question we had, which I think got answered, somebody in a warmer climate, like zone 9 or 10, do lilies need a cold treatment? Will they not come back in a warmer climate like that?
It depends, if I may answer. There was a fascinating trial, and probably Peggy Ann is aware of this. There was a fascinating trial that was conducted actually in the US, because of course a lily is a perennial, so it needs a certain amount of vernalization. And there was a trial whereby a range of varieties over different hybrids was sent out. And I found it truly fascinating because we know in the commercial cut flower and flower bulb industry or pot plant industry, just one moment, I beg your pardon.
This is live, right? So while Andrew's answering that, what about keeping the pollen from staining your clothes? You know, we've used lilies in bouquets and we have them on our table and they might get on the tablecloth. Okay, what have you guys used to get the pollen out of your clothing or materials?
You know, that's one of the biggest reasons that the breeders are working on removing the pollen. A bride doesn't want that on her beautiful white dress. I understand it. You can pull out just as your lily is opening, you can pull them out. It won't even stain your hands. A little later, you might want to use a tissue and pull them out. I'm a gardener, so I just let my hands stay orange for a while. But if that bothers you, they say to use cool water to not set the stain. Don't rub it in. And I've had, you know, because it gets on my clothes all the time. I've had success just using something like OxyClean or something like that. You know, with a load of dirty gardening clothes, seems to work.
Yeah, I read that you can use like a sticky tape to kind of pick off the pollen, because I think what we immediately go, oh no, and then we try to like rub it off and then it just gets into the fabric. So use like a lint roller, some sticky tape, and try some rubbing alcohol and kind of break it up a little bit before you put the cold water on there. So
I've heard that too.
something to try.
I've even heard solarization helps. Just taking it outside, knock it off and leave it in the sun.
Okay, I'm going to circle back to you, Andrew. Continue your thought that you were on earlier.
Okay, well, let's just to finish on that last point. I think if you are a gardener of lilies, it's inevitable that you'll probably clash with pollen at some point, and that doesn't need to be necessarily a problem. I think if you then take stems of lilies into your house, then I'll repeat kind of what my sort of guest panelists have said or colleague panelists have said already. I think it's people don't realize as such, but it's moist. So when you then go to white, you smear, in fact. You don't white, you smear. So the key really is to let it dry out. So, you know, if you've got a garment that's been covered or what, you know, a cushion or whatever, is to try and get it out in sunlight. You know, another option is, if you've got no sunlight, is to get a hairdryer and dry it out, you know, and then you use sticky tape. Those are all, you know, the key essential ingredient is to, you know, is dry, because once you dry it back, it won't smear or stain. Then you're fine. So yeah, that's and of course moving forward, pollen free and doubles will help of that. You know, I have to say, my wife, who's seen many lilies, now kind of, I won't say that she will only permit pollen free or double varieties in our home, but she is a bit more excited by those when I bring them home. And the first bunch of best regards I ever brought home, I said to her when it was just at the perfect flowering period, I said, wow, no, they're not fantastic. You know, they stood in front of a cast black iron fireplace. It was just beautiful. And she said, yeah, they're okay. You know, they're okay. And I was so let down and felt disappointed. But later she said, well, do you know what was great about those? And I said, no. She said, clearing them up. There was no issue of staining. I didn't have to think about how I'm going to clear them up or lift them out of the vase or anything. It's just so easy because they were pollen free. So, yeah.
Great.
But anyway, yeah, circling back to the other question, that was a fascinating thing for me. And I think I've still got the data for that somewhere. But there was a range of varieties. We were talking about growing lilies in warmer climates and would they, would they come back? Would they perennialize? And the answer is that, yeah, in most forms that they will. And the fascinating aspect about that trial was that we, of course, in the trade, we know growing times off by heart. We know which variety is slower, quicker than the other. And that collection of varieties was a collection of, I think Asiatics, LAs, Orientals, OT hybrids. And what was fascinating was, USA is a big country, okay, but throughout the different climatic zones, that they all came back differently. So sometimes some varieties that we would know as being a week quicker, say, and I should have looked it up before I come online because it was fascinating, truly fascinating, in different climatic zones because of milder or cooler winters. Certain varieties then flowered earlier than others, were shorter or taller than others. The whole rule book was kind of thrown out. So I think the answer is to the original question. Yeah, there are many varieties that will acclimatize to those different climatic zones. And to give an example of that, I had an acquaintance, a friend in the lily industry, and they grew lily bulbs down in Brazil for the Southern Hemisphere effect. And where they grew them was very warm, quite tropical. And they tried to grow them at an elevated level so that they could get cool conditions, and they could produce them more effectively. But it was warm. They never got below, X temperature X. I don't recall what that was. And they decided that it was too warm, really, that they couldn't produce the numbers at that kind of climate, didn't get the yield. But certain lilies remained in the ground there where they'd cultivated. And albeit that the temperature was never below, say, 18 to 20 degrees Celsius, they came back, which was fascinating because we didn't think that they would vernalize at that temperature, but they did, which I found was truly fascinating. So I'm not suggesting or proposing that will happen with all varieties and all hybrid forms, but I have said earlier that they are very tolerant and much hardier than you think, and I think that you will be amazed at the powers of recovery that they have.
If you happen to find that link that you could send me, I can include it in the email that I send out after the fact.
I'll have a scout around my computer system and see if I can find it, because it was a really maybe Peggy Ann can discover it or rediscover it. It was
no, I haven't read the study.
Okay, it was a really fascinating piece for those that
right. I'll ask Hank Onings.
Think that they know lilies. Sorry, Peggy Ann.
I work with Hank Onings. I'll ask him if he has a copy.
Okay, Hank possibly has a copy, but yeah, for those who think that they know lilies, it was quite startling, to see some of the data that report threw up. So yeah, very interesting.
Good. Okay, so as a closing thought from each panelist, I am going to ask you to give us your 60-second favorite gardening tip when gardening with lilies. So who wants to go first with your favorite quick tip?
I will. Oh, you're gonna go.
I've had lots of cool landscapes with lilies, and I like to put them all over, kind of sporadically. But I guess my biggest tip, or what's helped me, I think, is just when I clean up in the fall, I do a nice mulch on top of the areas that they are. I think that just helps all conditions. And the bulbs just get bigger and bigger, and the stalks get bigger and bigger, and more flowers. And it's amazing how many years you can nurse along a beautiful lily bulb. So that's mine.
Okay, thank you. Crystal?
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, the well-draining soil and then deadheading the flowers. If you leave the dead flowers on for too long in a lot of varieties, they'll start producing seeds, and that is taking a lot of energy from the bulb. So you want to go ahead and pick those off if you want to see the flowers come back year after year, because then it will gather energy from the leaves and come back after that.
Excellent. Who's next?
I'll go next. So,
Go ahead, Andrew.
oh, sorry, you ladies first, Peggy Ann.
Oh dear. Well, my only advice is plant as many as you can right now. But I'm fortunate that I have a garden, but a lot of people don't. And a lot of people have apartments and they live in small spaces, maybe with only balconies. And I want you to still grow lilies. It's okay to grow a lily as an annual if that's your only choice. The price point is not that high. It is not more than a premium annual, and probably less than that hanging basket you bought. Still plant lilies, still enjoy them. If you can give them to a neighbor and the friend at the end of the year and have them plant them, great, but don't miss out.
I think that's great advice. That's great advice. I would say mainly a couple of things. I talked earlier about photogenetic colors, you know, and if you're looking really for lilies and you want something to make a great panorama in your garden, then think about that, the variety that sprung off the page for you. And of course, as much as finance and space will allow, the bigger the clump, the bigger amount of bulbs that you plant, the greater the panorama is going to be. And particularly if you have those two-tone colors. So I think that's point one. And secondly, the days of social media is great, isn't it? And online information. If you're not totally familiar, get out there and ask questions in groups and forums about timing of lilies, because you can create, a lot of people will think, well, if I plant lilies, they're going to flower once and then it's done and it's finished. But you can create over the range of varieties and hybrids, you can create a whole range of successive flowering and therefore color in your garden. And that's a great, again, I keep coming back to pot lilies, but Asiatic genetic dwarf hybrids are the fastest flowering. So you can plant twice in a season. We've done that successfully commercially as well here, or in the UK rather, where, we've sent out kits of dwarf Asiatic varieties to people to plant up in the pot, and then they're done. And like Peggy Ann says, they can then pass those bulbs on, plant them in the soil, and then, so many weeks later, they get another pack of bulbs to pot up in the same container. And then they get 2 flowerings in 1 year, which is just great. So, yeah.
Fun.
Timing and colors. Excellent. So thank you so much. I want to thank all 4 panelists for your time today and your information. And what we hope is that everybody was inspired and found some solutions. And with that, thank you. Happy gardening. Enjoy your weekend.